Welcome to the Netherlands. I've just disembarked the ferry at the hook of Holland. Caught the overnight ferry from Harwich. I'm now routing approximately 29 kilometers towards Rotterdam, where I'm hopefully going to catch a train to Eindhoven. So, what on earth am I doing in Holland? Well, I'm here for a very special ride by invitation of Bart, a subscriber from the channel, who's asked me to join him to ride Hell's Highway. There's an old military saying that states no plan survives the first contact with the enemy, and nothing could be more true about this trip. Just arrived at Eindhoven railway station and done no more than a few pedal strokes and my pedal came off. So let's have a look. You can see that the spindle has come out. Basically the bearings have corroded and fallen apart, and that pedal just came straight off the spindle. So I've purchased these. The only problem is that I've had to also change the cleats on my shoes, but anyway, all is good and we seem to have got through that first failure of equipment.
After my cafe stop, I hooked up with Wout from the Liberation Route Europe, or simply LRE Foundation, just outside the station, and we headed off to meet Bart. Wout rode a strikingly familiar Canyon Air road, virtually identical to my other road bike. The route soon left the city limits and we crossed beautiful heathland along wonderful cycle tracks. Eventually we met up with Bart, who was waiting for us at the Belgium border.
Welcome in Belgium.
We've crossed the border into Belgium, having a look at the death wire, which sounds dreadful. Achtung! It's a bit dirty.
Through the window frame,
Yeah.
because the wood would then obviously, the wood doesn't glide electricity and they could go through. But a lot of people, they say a couple of hundred were actually injured by this.
Okay.
But truth be told, at the time it was also very difficult to gain electricity.
Yeah.
So many times there was no electricity on it. Now on days with a little bit of moisture in the air, they say that you could hear it going.
Yeah.
But on days that there wasn't moisture in the air, you just didn't know if that thing was on or not.
So, the death wire was a very large fence supplied with thousands of volts of electricity stretching across the two countries during the First World War to prohibit people crossing illegally from one country into the other, trying to avoid the front line. So we've crossed the border. Time to sample a Belgian beer. The Algesluis brewery was originally run by Belgian monks, now a trendy location to socialise.
There you go.
That's mine, thank you. That is a very dark beer. It's almost like Guinness.
Yes.
I had the privilege to meet Mr. VERHULST Sr., Bart's dad. Mr. VERHULST was just a baby, only 11 months old, when the British and Allied soldiers liberated his village of Aalst on 18th of September 1944. Here he sits on the bonnet of an Allied lorry. In this photo he's being held by an unknown British soldier, a sergeant, probably one of the Guards regiments of 30 Corps. Although he can't remember specifically these pictures being taken, he does remember the noise and anticipation of the troops' arrival. Here Mr. VERHULST stands with me outside the Heist Castle before toasting our departure with a beer. Ready and eager for the ride ahead, we first visit the local Belgium and British Commonwealth Cemetery in order to remember and commemorate the fallen before setting off.
Arriving at the cemetery.
The Belgium Military Cemetery was established in 1928. There rests more than 2,000 soldiers of mostly Belgium and British Commonwealth nationality. There are also some fallen soldiers from Poland, the Netherlands, and even the former Soviet Union.
So what I heard is that the inscriptions on the stones are paid by the families, but they had to pay for each single letter. So that's why you see often you don't see any inscriptions or just small inscriptions, because you needed to pay for every single letter. So it was pretty expensive to have a big story on it.
The Hell's Highway ride starts from Leopoldsburg, and perhaps the best start point is the location at which the cinema stood, wherein General Horrocks gave his orders for the Allied advance into Holland. We visited it the evening before. The cinema, long gone, its only existence a commemorative plaque. General Horrocks, his famous words, rang out to us.
This is a story that you will tell your grandchildren, and mightily bored they'll be. This is Operation Market Garden. The vital factor, gentlemen, is speed. Is speed.
Entering into a wooded cycleway, which is going to climb to the treetops.
Built in a nature reserve in Belgian Limburg, the circular structure is a double circle that is 10 metres in diameter. The 3-metre wide path is almost 700 metres long and rises at a gentle gradient to a height of 10 metres.
This is an incredible thing, isn't it? Cycleway up in the trees. Oh, by the way, this might be the only climbing that you get to do on the route, so that's great news.
Descending out of the cycleway, the early route takes you through the nature reserve, where we saw a doe with her fawn, a little dappled baby, who followed her mother into the woods.
Little baby Bambi and his mother.
The clouds appeared to gather, and the day turned grey as we came upon the German war cemetery at Lommel. The German war cemetery at Lommel is an incredible 16 hectares and has soldiers from the Second World War buried here. There were graves as far as the eye could see. We cycled up to the entrance marked with flags and an information point. We parked our bikes as a group of ladies arrived also by bike, who came to remember. Passing through the arched entrance into a stone courtyard, the atmosphere turned cold. There was a peace and quiet, only punctuated by occasional birdsong. Here lies over 36,000 men of the German army, approximately 2 divisions of soldiers. The graves are simple, a cast cross made of stones. Attached, the names of the fallen. Many have no names. 6,400 soldiers remain unidentified. At the entrance of the cemetery, you can visit the crypt. The building has an impressive sculpture depicting the crucifixion on top, and a viewing gallery where the full size of the site becomes more apparent. As we stood on the outlook, I couldn't help but picture the man who was responsible for these soldiers, as we now looked over the graves of these German men. After the cemetery, the route heads towards the start line for the British 30th Corps, who amass their armoured vehicles ready for the advance, commencing at the bridge over the canal. The original bridge had been destroyed by the Belgium Army in 1940, but the Germans had constructed a wooden pontoon bridge to the west of it.
We've arrived at Joe's Bridge. You can see the span. We're going to go and have a look at that in a minute. We've got this fantastic opportunity to have a look at the Liberation Route via the app. The Liberation Route are developing these cycleways across Europe, and you can use the app. It's going to tell you where to go. It's going to point out all the interesting locations with the information that's on the app. Val's going to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the blue dot indicates where we are now,
Okay.
and then this specific icon tells you you're really close to an audio spot. You can click on it and you'll see Joe Bridge coming up. Yeah, what we see here is what we call an audio stone or audio spot. So
Yeah.
it's the information panel situated on a stone. It tells you the information about, in this case, about Joe's Bridge. And it has a QR code on it, so you can scan the QR code and then it takes you to the app. And it has the audio story in the app.
Excellent.
So you can play the audio.
Yeah.
You can see the historical pictures below, so of Joe's Bridge. And you get some more information about how the Allied crosses the bridge.
So that means that every 5-10 kilometres you're going to find something very interesting to have a look at, and you can break your route down as you wish. Oh, that is a fantastic asset.
This bridge was taken on the evening of the 10th of September 1944 by the Irish Guards.
So Joe's Bridge is not named after a man called Joe, but after the man's initials.
J.O.E. Vanderleer.
17th of September 1944, the start line. We're crossing Joe's Bridge. On the right of the riverbank there are early Belgian defences against the invasion from Germany, but they weren't used. So once you cross the start line at Joe's Bridge, the route is veering to the right along the canal, then up through the forested area before you come up to the Belgian border. So along the route you're going to see these monuments, and at this one we're looking at a crash site of a Mustang, and it reads that the pilot didn't survive and he was shot down on Operation Day, 17th of September, 44.
It was called Bomber Highway, so the whole area of the north of Belgium, south of Holland. This is not a bomber, but about 6,000 airplanes were actually down between 40 and 45 in this area. Many of them are, some of them are not documented yet, but many of them are being documented as we speak, and in many cases they're erecting these places of tribute.
It's this kind of stuff that's brings the history alive to you along this very special route.
So it's these little things that you need to keep your eyes for open, boy.
Yeah.
The little treasures, treasures.
We're approaching the end of Belgium and we're entering into Holland. And here is the marker for the border crossing. So, as I just said, that's Belgium. This is the borderline. We're now entering the beautiful country of the Netherlands. So I understand, just like all good neighbours, we have these disputes about our border lines, our fence lines. And ever so often, the local people around here would move these bollards a couple of metres either way, and they would cause an international outrage as the diplomatic service had to put them back and work out exactly whose land was which. So I'm going to see if I can move it and cause an international outrage, but I don't think they move anymore. They seem to be pretty well cemented into the ground. Oh, is it the age, or is it?
That is the year it was put down.
Oh, the year it was put down?
Yeah.
1843 was when this one was first laid.
And then we got Valkenswaard, which is 7.5. That's where the Brits had no beer, but they had their tea. And there's more of signs like these that I'll show you along the way.
Just tell me, what does that ANWB stand for?
General Dutch Wheel Riders Association, a literal translation that would be.
Say it in Dutch.
Algemene Nederlandse Wielrijdersbond. Okay, did you get that?
God, it's like Paris-Roubaix, a single lane cobbled street. Taken a brief stop here at this cafe. This building was originally here in September 44. What we want to briefly talk about now is what happened just before the advance of the main force. We can find out about it at one of these Liberation Route information points.
Keep the battery going.
This information was very important for General Horrocks, commander of the 30th Corps, in preparing Operation Garden, which was designed to push towards Arnhem within 2 to 4 days.
If you want to, you can listen to it on the app, or you can wind the handle and listen, and you have a choice of different languages, which is great. And briefly, what you're going to learn about is the prelude to the main advance, when some very daring British ran up this road at 60 miles per hour in a couple of armoured cars to try and recce the German positions. They took quite a lot of incoming rounds and attacks from the wooded areas either side of the road, but they did manage to make it back, and that information was pretty vital for those first early kilometres as they advanced from the start line. And actually, the recce was regarded as the most daring recce of the war, and Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery actually said that it was the most audacious recce of the Second World War.
The main advance of British 30 Corps had begun, but it was soon to become bogged down. The question was, could they stick to their ambitious 48-hour plan to reach Arnhem to relieve the airborne units? Join me on the next episode as I continue to ride Hell's Highway.